thought, okay, we want to do this. We said, but we need to buckle down for these next 6 months before we leave, and we need to save up. So I split this up into 5 separate sections. I will have the times down listed in the description so that you can skip through. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Stella the Light. I'm here in Hawaii on the island of Oahu, and today I'm going to be telling you about how I started saving money, how I started budgeting, and how I specifically started budgeting for traveling. Most of you know that I decided about 6 months ago to start long-term traveling, and this is our very first spot that we are hitting. This was a really highly requested video because a lot of people want to know like how I make this work with my lifestyle and how I've budgeted this and how in general I got the ball rolling with saving for this trip and in general for life. Alright, so the very first section that I want to go over is how I started saving money. So when I was in my sort of drug phase, when I was using drugs heavily, I really didn't have any savings at all. So I basically was living pretty much like paycheck to paycheck. I would have $5 or $10 to live off for a week at a time, and I made it work. I really didn't care. I really wasn't worried about it that I can remember. But when I first started thinking, wow, I should probably start saving my money, was around the time that I started my business. So I started my business while I was still working my other jobs. And I kept those other jobs. And what I basically did was kind of tripped into saving money. I didn't really do it on purpose. It just kind of happened because I was 100% unsure of how taxes work, what I was supposed to do with the money that I was making off of my business. So what I ended up doing was just setting that money aside, and I didn't touch it until tax season came around, and I met up with my tax guy and he went over how everything worked. And I'm really glad that I didn't touch any of that money because it is very interesting how taxes and paying your taxes, owning a business works. So I'm glad that I did that. But essentially I saved everything I made for an entire year, the entire first year of my business, and that's how I kind of fell into saving money. And what I was doing was I was living off of the money I was making serving as I was a waitress. Another huge factor in saving money was that I did live with my parents. I lived with my mother for the past few years. I was taking care of my grandmother. She has Alzheimer's. Most of you know this. She has Alzheimer's, so I was living with my mom. I didn't pay rent, and I was taking care of my grandmother daily. She moved in with us, and she needed basically 24/7 care. So I did that, and that was a huge help. So I know a lot of people don't have this option, and they do have to pay rent every month. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't save money. That simply just means that it will take you a little bit longer to save more money. So it was a quick way for me to save money easily, and a lot of people do have this luxury. You know, after you get finished college, a lot of people move back in with their parents when they first start their careers and things like that. So that was really, really good, and I'm really lucky and blessed that I was able to live with my parents, live with my mom. I'm so grateful for that, and I hope that someday I can give back to her and take care of her when she gets older. She's taken such great care of me my entire life and has always given me a place to be, and I'm really, really grateful for that. And the next thing that happened was I began to make lifestyle changes. So I began to realize slowly that I was spending a lot of money on shopping, going out to eat, and things like that. And when I went plant-based vegan, you know, that triggered this whole minimalism, environmentally friendly thing in me. It started a fire in me and a passion for that. So I started learning and growing and making changes. And when I did make these changes, I realized, wow, I'm saving so much money. What a great feeling. So that also went along with being with Damon. Being with Damon, we started out our relationship eating out a lot, shopping a lot. It was very money-based. We would get each other's gifts and things like that. And it was just a very typical relationship. And as time moved on, we realized we both don't need gifts. We don't even like to celebrate those kind of holidays anymore. Like Christmas is not huge gift giving with us and things like that. So that was a really big thing, and we keep each other in line. So if Damon wants to get something new, a new pair of shoes, I kind of call him out. I'm like, hey, you have 2 pairs of shoes that are, you know, that still need to be used, or that you know, you don't need another pair of shoes. Or me with like a bikini or something, he'll do it too. He'll be like, look at how many bikinis you have, you don't need to get another bikini. And I'll be like, you know what, you're right. So that is something that really helped us out, was always keeping each other in line. Next, I'm going to talk about how I started budgeting. So when I first started saving money and making money, I didn't really have a budget because I wasn't sure on anything. I was just starting out, so I didn't have much to budget for exactly. But when we started traveling, that's all of a sudden when it hit that, wow, we need to make sure that we're not overspending when we travel. So those lifestyle changes played into our traveling. When we first started traveling, we did spend a lot more money, because when we would travel, we would go and buy little knickknacks and go out to eat a lot and all these unnecessary things that now we look back on and we think, wow, we should have experienced more of the culture of the people, cooking our own fresh produce from there, a lot of hiking and things like that. We wish we would have done more of that and less of the, you know, typical tourist type things. So kind of how we would do this is we would set up a very laid back budget for how much we wanted to spend on accommodations and how much we wanted to spend on food while we were there. Those were the 2 biggest things, and then we would always allot a certain amount of money for spending outside of that. And we also made sure that in general we had enough money that in case of an emergency of some kind, we would have enough money to take care of whatever we needed. I have some traveling budget tips that I'm going to list for you guys. I wrote them down here on my phone. I'll go over them just so that you guys know like our biggest budget traveling tips. So first up is to go for budget accommodations versus resorts. So I know resorts can be really appealing and they say all inclusive and everything, but you really aren't going to get the feel or the vibe of where you are if you're just in an all-inclusive resort. It's going to be really expensive. They're going to be serving a lot of junk food. You're not going to be able to experience a lot, and it just feeds more into that lazy vacation thing than actually experiencing traveling. So what we do is we always go usually on Airbnb, and we find within our budget, you can set a budget on there and your time frame, and it will kind of do the work for you and show you your options. We always pick the best options. We always choose somewhere with a kitchen, even if it's a little bit more expensive, because in the long run we will save so much money having our own kitchen versus having to buy cooked foods and things like that. So that's a really big tip. Next up is to, of course, go grocery shopping on your own. That was always something that we really loved doing because we had a kitchen and a full fridge and a stove and everything like that. We always could go grocery shopping and save hundreds on food just by doing that. Next is, you know, not falling for the gimmick tours and shows and things like that that are extremely costly, and instead diving into the culture of the town, taking your own tours, like walking around the towns yourself, hiking, talking to people and asking them good spots that you can go to. There's always going to be places and things that you can do. You can go around a town yourself and really figure that out on your own. It's quite easy. And my last tip would be to always leave room for mistakes. So we always knew like a rough budget of what we wanted to spend, but we always left room for mistakes, because traveling, especially when you're new at traveling, you will make mistakes and you will need more money to cover up for your mistakes. One thing I'll say is when we first rented a car and we were in California, it was so expensive. I know if we did that a second time around, I think we would try and do something different because it was really expensive. But we rented the car from a third-party company, not knowing that we had paid an extra fee for the third-party company. And then when we got there, we owed more. And because we were under the age of 25, we owed even more. And it just ended up spending almost triple what we thought we were going to be spending on a rental car. And that would have led us down to, you know, going in the negatives for our budget, but we over budgeted and left room for mistakes, thank God. So that's kind of how we worked that out. And those are my little tips for budget traveling. The next thing that I want to talk about is relaxed budgeting, or the way that I have started to budget. So my idea, and a lot of people's idea of budgeting, when I hear that word, I think of like numbers and spreadsheets and all these crazy things. But when it comes down to it, the lifestyle that we ended up living is so simple, and we put our money in so few places that we are able to relax budget. We're really not budget to the point of having to track things and write things down. So essentially what we do is we only have our very basic bills. So we have our bills like a phone bill and things like that, and now we pay rent, of course, food, gas, all those kind of things. And it's very simple. It's about 5 or 6 different places. We don't have a lot of subscriptions. We don't have a lot of memberships or things like that. So really we are just living life based off of the most simple things. Now, what we do is for outside things. I think my camera's gonna die. Of course, this is happening now. Okay, I'm sorry, my camera died. Where was I at? I can't remember where I was at. Oh, so I was talking about relaxed budgeting. So basically we have factored out about how much we want to save each month, and there's never a time where we really allot a certain amount for spending on shopping or going out to eat or things like that, because we do it so infrequently. Usually what we do is just really rationalize our spending. So if I'm like, oh my god, I really want to go to the movies or something like that, like I said, we do that keep each other in line kind of thing. Damon will say, we don't really need to go to the movies, why don't we watch a movie at home? And I'm like, yeah, because that is like $30 that we would save. Now, do we once in a while go out to eat, go to the movies, buy some new clothes or something like that? Of course we do, but some months it's $0 that we spend, some months is more, some months we splurge on something big like an electronic that we get, or something along those lines. So essentially we just keep ourselves in line, and if we do think that we are spending too much, it's always that we check back with each other. Having someone to depend on is really key and crucial, for us at least, in saving money. And that wraps up relaxed budgeting. All right, next up, how I started budgeting for specifically Hawaii and long-term traveling in general. So how we kind of started was, we started with the idea of actually traveling. And when we thought, okay, we want to do this, we said, but we need to buckle down for these next 6 months before we leave, and we need to save up. We need to start a separate savings. So I had a savings saved up that I was going to use for buying land and building a house. And what I did was, I didn't decide, okay, I'm going to just use that instead to go travel the world and just splurge all that money. I decided, okay, I'll put that savings aside for whenever I decide to do that, and start these 6 months saving up and buckling down and really conserving our money. So we really wanted to get a handle on exactly how much we spend on food and necessities and things like that. So we started writing this down pretty much each month, and started roughly guesstimating how much we would spend, and then over budgeted for Hawaii, because Hawaii is more expensive. And we over budgeted a lot for Hawaii, because we really were not sure of whether it was going to be super expensive here, not that expensive. We heard so many different back and forth, so we just decided, let's be on the safe side and save and save and save, so that we're able to really afford it and not have to struggle at all, because that's one thing that we don't ever want to do, is feel depleted with money. Another thing that we budgeted for with traveling and starting to travel here in Hawaii is that we set a cost for startup costs. So I did say before that we weren't sure whether we were going to be getting a car or not, and we ended up having to get a car, but we had set aside and budgeted money for a car if we needed it. So different startup costs would be like a car, or stuff for the kitchen, or, you know, towels and linens and things like that if we needed them and we weren't sure if our spot was gonna have them or if we're gonna need them, even down to a bed, just in case we rented a place that didn't have a bed or a mattress. So we ended up not having to spend a lot on those kind of things, but we did end up having to get a car and a few other things. Damon got a surfboard, which we budgeted in and made sure that it was a smart decision. We had budgeted in that before though, because Damon knew that he was going to want to get a surfboard when he got here, because it would have been way less cost effective to ship his board here. It costs hundreds to ship a board, and his board, he didn't want to ruin it here, and all these different reasons. So we made sure to hit all sides of budgeting for the month in general, and also the startup cost budgeting. And what I'm going to do for you guys is, for budgeting in general, is I put together a little spreadsheet. It's very, very simple, and what you can do is just plug in your numbers, so your income, how much you want to save each month, those type of things. And it's just a really easy way for you to see, like, if you need to work on a specific spot, or if you're doing well in a specific spot. It'll be good for you guys to kind of see, like, oh, like, this is doable, or oh, I need to spend less in this section. It just kind of lays it out for you, just so you can get yourself situated and see where you're at in your own savings and budgeting. Okay, so this is just very, very broad, but I decided to write down, I sat and wrote down all of my biggest tips that I have for you guys on budgeting, for traveling, and for life in general, and saving, and all that good stuff. So tip number 1, don't be afraid to ask for help. It's always okay to ask for help from your partner, from your parent, from someone to help you jump into saving. So what I did for Damon, because he had a hard time saving, he was young, not a lot of people his age were saving money, so he wasn't in that mindset yet, was I started a bank account for him, and kind of just was someone to keep him liable and keep him accountable for putting some money in there every now and then, because we both had goals for our future, and I wanted to help him out, because he did try for a little while to do it by himself, and he said, you know, I just can't do this. And I said, all right, then let's try and do it a different way and see if I can help you, and again, hold you accountable. And it ended up working out perfectly, and now he is really, really great at budgeting and saving his money on his own, which is amazing. Tip number 2 would be just to be honest with yourself. You need to really look at what you're spending money on, and pick the 2 or 3 spots where you really feel like you're splurging too much, spending too much money. Things like going to the bar, shopping, eating out too much, and really hanker down and work on those areas very slowly. You don't need to do it dramatically and cut all costs and, you know, change your lifestyle right away, because I know that can be difficult, but just being real and honest with yourself. My next tip would be to research the benefits of living minimal. I didn't know anything about this until going vegan. Going vegan, of course, opened up the world of minimalism and eco-friendly things. For me, I did not know anything, and I'm still on such a learning path with this, but really do your research on this. Watch a couple of documentaries, listen to some podcasts, and you will be hooked. You'll think, wow, why didn't I start this sooner? Not only am I saving money, but I'm helping the environment, I'm helping, you know, myself, I'm helping my health, I'm helping, you know, all different sides. And it's just a really, really great way to, you know, take that leap into minimalism. Tip number 4 would be, don't fall for gimmicks. So there are a lot of gimmicks out there in the world, especially while traveling. Don't fall for them. Don't fall for the tourist tricks. Buying out, you know, takeout food, taking that tour that costs $1 bajillion because it's the coolest thing and everybody does it. Follow your instincts. Decide to travel and experience culture and the people there and the nature that's there and the produce that's there, instead of falling for the same typical, you know, going out to eat and drinking and wasting your time. You don't want your whole vacation to be a fog. You want to remember it and you want to immerse yourself in it, and it'll save you a lot of money and your health. Tip number 5, find someone who will call you out. Damon is my person. He will call me out on my bullshit. He does not let me overspend. He rationalizes with me. Things like that. So if you can find a person like that who you can go to and who will just kind of keep you in line, and not someone who condones your bad habits, like your bad drinking habits, your bad shopping habits, your bad eating out habits, and just kind of try and play off of that, it'll help you out a ton in rationalizing in your own head how wrong spending so much money on takeout food and shopping and all that stuff is. Tip number 6. The 2 most expensive things in life are food and housing. I would recommend highly on going plant-based vegan. You will save so much money just by going plant-based, because the basis of our foods are the cheapest foods ever. Beans and rice and potatoes and oatmeal and local fruits and vegetables and things like that. So just doing that alone is going to help you so much in your journey towards saving money. And of course, Going vegan, like I said, opened up the world of minimalism to me, and it made me realize that I don't need a big house and fancy things and fancy cars, that I just need the basics that work and are the most eco-friendly. It's been a journey for me. Like I said, I still make mistakes and I'm learning on this one, but things have changed so much for me over the past few years in my growth in minimalism and being eco-friendly. And I think that if you were to do a little research into that, into veganism and plant-based living and all of this, you would kind of feel the same way. And my very last tip is to always over budget. Like I said, you know, you're always going to make mistakes and things in life are always going to be more expensive. So it's always best to over budget yourself rather than under budget, screw yourself, and then be broke and struggling. So I wanted to point out as well that this long-term traveling was not a way for us to move and not work. So we are still both working and we still both have an income each month that we budget, and then from there with the leftovers we just put in our savings. So we still are budgeting and still are saving, all while we're traveling. I work from home. Damon does a lot of all different kinds of work. So we're still working, both of us working very hard and still budgeting and saving our money that way. Alright guys, I really hope that you loved this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. If you have any suggestions on budgeting, saving, anything at all, leave them down in the comments below. And if you're interested in going plant-based, just visit my website, StellaTheLight.com. Hit the contact me button and tell me more about yourself and your journey and your goals, and I'll get you started. Alright guys, I will see you for the next video.